Darren Millard, Nick Kiprios, Doug McLean, joined by NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman here in studio. Nick, your question.
Want to take you down the path of the Olympics. It'd be great if you could just tell everybody this will be the last Olympics and we don't have to shut down hockey anymore.
You don't think we should go to the Olympics?
Let me ask you something.
That wasn't even your question going to break, by the way.
I know, but I'm going to take you here anyways. I think it's been great up until this point, but we don't need the Olympics anymore to now market internationally. We can do that on our own with World Cups. And let me ask you something.
Yeah.
3 weeks.
Has anybody ever checked out my position on this over the years?
3 weeks. Answer me this question. 3 weeks that the league shuts down. What does it cost the owners and the players?
Where were you when I was
I know,
articulating the problems and people were hammering me?
No, I'm catching on now.
You should have been defending.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Listen,
he was in Fear's pocket.
No, but actually, is that true?
Oh, well, you don't have to ask that.
Hey, why is he beside you right now? So he can reach your pocket.
We're long-time friends.
Kippy, he buried you. Move on.
So let's take a step back. Of all the North American sports, I think ours has the longest, deepest tradition of international competition. Our players grow up on a steady diet of international competition. They love representing their countries, and so it's important to the players. And that probably, as much as the second thing I'll mention, and that is fan interest, are the reasons we go. There's no economic incentive for us to go. It is disruptive of the season. There are pros and cons. I've been articulating them for years. And listen, the fact that we go to the Olympics is something that I initiated for us to go to Nagano in '98. But it's not an all good thing. It's a balancing act. And when you take off, anywhere from 2 weeks to 2.5 weeks in the middle of the season at a point where the NFL's gone and it's really just us in the NBA and we're getting attention and we're starting to focus on the stretch drive as to who's going to make the playoffs. When you stop, it's a break in momentum. And we come back, and not all of our teams, the NHL teams, have been affected the same way. There are some teams where virtually the entire roster gets to go on vacation, and there are other teams that may send 10 or 12 players to the Olympics and could come back kind of banged up. But we do it because we try to be good citizens in the international community with the IOC and the IIHF, the International Ice Hockey Federation. We do it because lots of fans tell us they think it's important and they want to see it. And we've been doing it because the players want to do it. Now, having said that, we're in discussions with the Players Association. Now that we have the benefit and the opportunities created by a long-term collective bargaining agreement, international is something we do together, and we're looking at all of our options, and we know there's a lot of interest in a World Cup, in some European Cup competition, more premier games. So international is something that we think is a great opportunity for us, perhaps more than any other league in North America, and it's something we're working on with the Players Association.
Does the host nation of an Olympics impact your buy-in?
It's not about my buy-in. It's really what's right for the game. The impact, the balancing act that I talked about, when you're in Vancouver, the balance comes down in favor of being at the Olympics. Whatever the detriments are.
South Korea?
Salt Lake City, really good. Torino, Nagano, I'm not sure the balance was so good. We haven't focused on South Korea yet. By the way, we know Russia has a great deal of interest in hockey. It's a great hockey country. Alex Ovechkin just got back last night from being the first Russian to carry the torch for this year's Olympics, and we think that's great. But it's 9 hours ahead of the East Coast of North America. So if they play the game at
12 in the West,
but it's 4 a.m, it's midday. We're giving up, goes to Kipper's point, we're giving up prime time exposure to be, a third or half of the way around the world.
The Summer Olympics in men's soccer is, I think, an under 22.
23.
23?
I think that's what it is.
Would you be willing to go down that route? Now, keep in mind, you have more young players in your league now than ever.
You know, you guys were talking about two youngsters who are lighting it up in Chicago and have 2 Stanley Cup rings. And, you know, one's 24 and one's 25. I'm not sure that does it either. And I'm not sure that that's something that the International Ice Hockey Federation would embrace. I think we're going to have to by the time we're done with Sochi and we can evaluate that experience, and we in the Players Association have had the discussions we want to have about what the future calendar looks like, we'll have a pretty good idea as to what makes sense.
So,
and by the way, and even though the balance gets struck differently, if you conclude that the Olympics are on balance a good thing, then you go and you smile probably no matter where it is. And if you conclude that enough is enough and that World Cups are better, then you go down that road.
What do you have differently in this Olympics that you didn't have in Vancouver? It's my understanding you couldn't even take the Crosby overtime goal and do anything with it because you didn't have permission or the rights. What's differently now?
Our access to our players, our promotional rights, our access to video and various highlights and shoulder programming that we can do in conjunction is broader. But you're right. You're raising the issue that says the IOC is extraordinarily protective of its rights and what it has, and it's tough to get them to let us do the things we need to do. And the only reason they'll do anything is there's some recognition of what we do, unlike the NBA, for example, that does it in the off season. You know, but they worry. Precedent, the IOC does, about, well, what they do for us, they may have to do for others, and we say we're in a unique position. This point in time, Sochi, again, important to the hockey world, important to Russian hockey, important to, you know, a number of our players. I get it, even though it's not going to be, you know, all easy and all good because of the logistical and time differences, but we're going to be at the right time to evaluate what is the right course for us as a league and our players and our game and our fans going forward.
So I'd like to move away from Olympics. Do you have any more?
I'm good.
I look at the realignment, and
Yes.
I mean, the major challenges going into it with Columbus, Detroit, Winnipeg, Dallas, and a number of teams that had major issues with it. I've got to say that I'm going into tonight's game or tomorrow night's game saying I'm excited about the challenges teams have. I'm excited about the divisional, which we've talked about.
There's going to be good teams who miss the playoffs here.
That's a good thing.
But how did you go through? Like, we were sitting here for a year trying to figure this out, how this is going to work. All of a sudden, the 7s and the 8s fixed it. But how many people were thrilled, and you've got a couple people a little upset?
No,
Like
actually,
2 minutes here.
Actually, from a club standpoint, the clubs overwhelmingly were thrilled, and it was intended to be fan-friendly. First of all, now every club's in every building at least once, which I think was a huge plus. Secondly, what we wanted to do, if you look at Dallas, for example, that was in the Pacific, or Detroit being in the West, Winnipeg being not where they belonged at all, Columbus being in the West, when those teams went to play their Western rivals, they were doing it late at night for home television. This was an attempt to put everybody where they belonged. And the fact that there's, it's 16 and 14, I think that's irrelevant. It doesn't bother me at all, because the 7th and 8th, whether or not you're in the 7th spot or the 7th and 8th spot, they're not the ones who are, it's the top 5, maybe 6 clubs that are competing for the playoffs. So from that standpoint, it's going to be good. And there's a lot of misinformation about that. Somebody wrote the other day that Florida, now has to do so much more traveling. I have a secret for everybody. They're going to do 14% less traveling this year than they did 2 years ago, the last full season.
But they are going to cross the border more.
But we're doing the schedule in a way that they're actually traveling less. And
How does that work? Explain that to me.
The way we route them.
Really?
Yeah. So we have better, because of the configuration and the way we have to schedule now.
Yeah.
It's easier to route them in a way that's more efficient.
Do you agree it's not one of the most exciting things about
Wyoming International Airport is going to be busier?
I'm excited about it.
Good.
The reason
that's why we did it.
The reason why you have memories of the Hartford Whalers, with all due respect to Nick and John Garrett and the guys that played for them, was because they had some great series against Montreal year after year, and there's a rivalry. And now
Or
we're
Quebec
getting
City.
and now we're getting back to that.
Well,
Exactly.
we whenever you do alignment, it's very difficult. It's very emotional. But on balance, the league as a whole thought this was a terrific plan to accomplish all of the objectives we were seeking to accomplish.
Do you like the Metropolitan name?
Yeah,
You know what? The answer
you gotta
to
fix
but-
that.
but by the way,
Seriously.
Get-
That's ice cream.
serious. By the way,
That's
we-
ice cream.
Neapolitan
we
is ice
asked
cream.
Oh, yeah,
we
okay.
asked repeatedly everybody for suggestions, and nobody came up with one better.
So
and
don't
I'll
say it
bet
was your
the- And I'll
idea.
bet the three of you can't come up
Please.
with one that's better that makes sense. And there's a symmetry. By the way, if you look at the Pacific and the Atlantic,
Yeah.
those are the two principal ones
none
that
of
have
them are on the
teams in
Atlantic.
Canada. No. But those are the teams. By the way, and Dallas wasn't in the Pacific when they were in the Pacific Division.
You didn't come up with Metropolitan, though. That wasn't your idea. Just say that. Blame it on Frank or one of these other guys.
Actually, you texted me. You suggested it. Got a better name? I bet not.
You should cancel your show and just pick up ours.
You know, maybe we'll
It
have
was
to have.
canceled, wasn't it?
No, it
I
wasn't
thought you said it was
canceled.
canceled.
No.
It was not canceled.
Last year I was
Yes.
preoccupied doing other
You got a
things.
long-term deal
Tough
for
to
the radio
say,
show?
Don, I can't come to the CBA negotiations because I've got my show.
Well, he could have just told Nick to tell Don.
By the way, can you imagine the criticism?
I think I
What are
did
you
well for
doing
the
doing a
players.
show when you should be negotiating?
Gary, be honest. I
What?
did pretty good for the players in the last CBA, didn't I?
You've always been great.
do you miss us hanging out in front of
Oh,
your
I'll-
It's a sickening listening to him.
Yeah, so I've noticed on the Olympic point too.
We gotta go.
I didn't know you were
Thanks
this
to the
flexible.
commissioner for stopping by. Essential at noon. Appreciate it.